All right, here's your second video for the week. We're going to multiply and divide fractions. So just to review, multiplication. When you multiply with whole numbers, like 3 times 4, that means you're doing 3 groups of 4. So if you remember, 3 times 4 is 12. So 3 groups of 4 gives us 12. Multiplying with fractions is a little bit different. When I say 1/2 times 2/3, you are taking 1/2 of 2/3. So this picture kind of outlines it for you. Basically, 1/2 of 2/3. You have 2/3. If I divided this shape into thirds, and I have 2 of them, so these 2. Then I'm taking half of that. So half of the 2/3. And that's this part right here. And then where they overlap then is my answer. So half of 2/3 becomes 2/6, because you can see there's 1, 2 out of a total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes. So 1/2 times 2/3 is 2/6. So it's a little bit harder to understand when you're taking fractions of fractions, but that's kind of what you're doing. If I say you can have half of the pizza, but then you have to give half of that half to someone else, now you only get 1/4 of the pizza. But multiplying fractions algebraically is a little bit easier to do than adding. Multiplying fractions, you do not need a common denominator. Okay, so write that off to the side. Do not need a common denominator. All you do is you multiply across. So I always sing the little tune to myself, multiplying fractions, no big problem, top times top over bottom times bottom. Just helps me remember it. So when you multiply fractions, you multiply straight across the top. So you take the 1 times the 2, or 2 times 1 is 2 on top, and 3 times 5 is 15 on bottom. So multiply across the top. 3 times 2 is 6. 5 times 7 is 35. So multiplying fractions, no big problem. Top times top, 15 over bottom times bottom. 9 times 4 is 36. So whenever you take a fraction times another fraction, you always end up with something smaller. Kind of like when I told you, if I told you you could have half of the pizza. So you go and you take half of this pizza. But then your mom says, nope, you have to give that half of that slice to your sister. So now you only get stuck with this 1/4. So half times a half is a 1/4. When you multiply fractions, your answer is always smaller than what you started with. 2/15 are really small compared to 2/3 and 1/5. But the algebra involved, the math part, just multiply across. How do we multiply and then simplify fractions? So we're going to review that quickly as well. So first, multiply by multiplying across the top and across the bottom. So 2 times 1 is 2. Then 3 times 2 is 6. Then to simplify, what you need to think about is what do these 2 numbers have in common? Well, I'd say they're both divisible by 2. 2 and 6 are divisible by 2. Or you can think of this as 2 is the same thing as 1 times 2, and 6 is the same thing as 3 times 2. Now this fraction right here, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So those 2 simplify to 1, and our answer then is 1/3 simplified. Okay, so let's do that again. So first, multiply across. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 6 is 30. What do 20 and 30 have in common? They both have 10 in common. So I would rewrite this as 20 is the same thing as 2 times 10. 30 is the same thing as 3 times 10. So So I can cancel the 10s because 10 divided by 10 is 1, which means that 20 over 30 simplifies to 2/3. All right, one more. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 4 is 16. So since they're both even numbers, I know that I can divide them by 2. So for example, 6 is 3 times 2, and 16 is 8 times 2. Then I can cancel the 2's, so it reduces to 3/8. Once in a while, you do need to simplify more than once. Let's go back to 20 over 30. Let's say we would have simplified by 2 first. So you know that 20 is the same thing as 10 times 2. And 30 is the same thing as 15 times 2. So now it simplifies to 10 over 15. But that can be simplified one more time because 10 and 15 both have a 5 in common. 10 is the same thing as 2 times 5, and 15 is the same thing as 3 times 5. So now I have to simplify it down all the way to 2/3, which is what we got when we chose to simplify by 10 right away. So simplify as far as you can by finding what they have in common for factors, or things that both numbers are divisible by, essentially. And then I rewrite it as a multiplication and then simplify. All right, dividing fractions. My little jingle for dividing fractions is easy as pie. You flip the second and multiply. Okay, you might have also learned keep, change, flip. So that means that you keep the first one the same, change to multiply, change to times, I'll say, and then you flip the second. Flip the second fraction. Keep, change, flip. Keep the first one the same, change it to times, flip the second. So keep 3/4 divided by 1/4. You're going to keep 3/4, change it to multiply, times, then flip the second one, 4 over 1. Then multiply across the top. So 3 times 4 is 12 over 4 times 1 is 4. Then simplify. Well, this one is 12/4 is the same thing as 12 divided by 4. So it simplifies to 3. Or you can think they both have 4 in common. 12 is 3 times 4, and 4 is 1 times 4. So you can take out a 4 in both. 3 over 1 simplifies to just 3. All right, keep the first fraction the same, 2/3. Change it to multiply, so instead of divide, times. Then flip the second fraction, so 4/3. Multiply across the top. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 3 is 9. Now 8 is divisible by 2 and 4. 9 is divisible by 3, so they don't have anything in common, so that cannot be simplified. Oh, multiplying or dividing with a whole number. If you have a whole number, you have to remember that all whole numbers can be written over 1. So to multiply or divide with a whole number, you do need to change it to a fraction by dividing or putting the whole number over 1. So then you can rewrite it, keep the first one the same, change it to multiply, flip the second one. Multiply across the top. 5 times 4 is 20 over 1, which is just 20. One more, 5, 6, keep the first one the same, change it to multiply, flip the second. 5 times 4 is 20, 6 times 3 is 18. Now 20 and 18 can be simplified. So let's see, we could go by 2's, so 10 times 2, and then 18 is 9 times 2, so I can take out a 2. So it's 10/9. Or, as a mixed number, that's 9/9 plus 1/9, so that's 1 and 1/9. 10/9 is 9/9 plus 1/9 is 1 1/9. Just to kind of understand dividing by a fraction, so it's a little bit different than dividing by a whole number, so I put a visual here for you to kind of see how that works. Because when you do 5 divided by a half, you get 10. Remember that 5 over 1 divided by 1 over 2 would be the same thing as 5 over 1 times 2 over 1, which you get 10. Why does it become a bigger number when you divide by a fraction? Because division, like if you have those 12 things again divided by 4, that means that you're taking 12 pieces of candy, splitting it into 4 groups, each person gets 3. Well, with division, since you're dividing it into groups, you're taking 5, dividing it into groups of 1/2, and then that makes 10 groups total. So just to kind of visualize what's happening there. Try a few on your own. I have 3 multiply, 3 dividing, simplify if possible, show all of your work, and then when you're done, make sure that you share it back to me using the share arrow here, send it to Schoology, choose the week 1 number 2 assignment for you.